So, friend of the pod, James Shapiro, has written a fantastic book called The Year of Lear, Shakespeare in 1606. And now my friend, actor and director Daniel Mothershed is having his own Year of Lear. Not only did he direct the second production of my play Fool, the hilarious true story of King Lear based on Christopher Moore's novel, he is now in a production of King Lear by a company called Bowls with the Bard, which we'll talk about, in which he plays both King Lear and his fool. Daniel, how the hell does that work?
Very confusingly, but I think I might be going mad, but that feels appropriate for the material. So I'm that dedicated.
I would imagine. Now, first of all, talk me through Bowls with the Bard. Do you have to be stoned to see these shows and make sense of it?
You do not. No, I don't, at least. I am not a smoker. It maybe it helps with some of the jokes. I have no idea, but
I know that in backroom shakes they encourage drinking amongst the audience, not so much
Yes.
amongst the cast. And I imagine, is it the same with Bowls with the Bard?
No, it is not. It is audience can imbibe, but also actors, if they so choose, can imbibe. Which I knew about Bulls with the Bard for a couple of years before I got to work with them, and liked what I was hearing from friends who had done productions, but not being a smoker, I was always afraid. Oh, I don't. That's that's a door that's closed to me. But when I auditioned for a production at Twelfth Night, they're absolutely happy for people to just show up and only act. But yeah, Bowls with the Bard was a company that started technically as a podcast by a really talented theater artist named Michaela Mannix, who recently moved to Colorado, and she had seen sort of a backroom shakes, shit-faced Shakespeare kind of a thing, and really liked it. But she doesn't drink, and was like, well, that's not something I can participate in. So she decided to start talking about Shakespeare and imbibing and indulging in that substance instead of alcohol, and then started a podcast where it was just her for a really long time, and then she moved to Colorado and decided to make the leap to become, I believe, the United States' first ever like stoned Shakespeare production company. And they started with a Twelfth Night, or excuse me, not Twelfth Night. They started with a Midsummer Night's Dream, which I sort of feel like is a perfect
Yeah,
weed
gateway.
show.
Yeah.
And then did an As You Like It, which also feels appropriate for that. And then they did a production of Cymbeline, which that's a bold choice. A great one.
Sure. That's hard to track when you're straight. That Cymbeline, that's tricky.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. No kidding. And then
Do we think stoned Shakespeare is maybe a better name for the company, more in keeping with drunk Shakespeare, shit-faced Shakespeare?
yeah, and that is if you find them on social media, that is their handle across Instagram,
Perfect.
Threads. I don't think
Perfect.
they're on Twitter, but yeah, Stone Shakespeare is the handle. But yeah, they've done these really great. They did a puppet version of Macbeth, which I saw a couple of times, and was somehow still is like dramatic and kind of weird, but also very funny. They walked that line beautifully.
That's amazing. No, you were telling me about that production, and it sounded terrific. But tell me the thinking behind one actor playing both King Lear and the Fool. Was that your idea? Was that their idea? Did they know what they were doing when they decided to do it that way, or have you guys figured it out in rehearsal?
Yeah, it was not my idea, no, because I would not have given myself that task were I the one to come up with it. No, it was our director's concept. Our director Clove had this idea for King Lear. They wanted to set it in a circus, kind of a creepy circus, and have everybody play two characters and do it as kind of a split. So, and everybody is actually playing the two. So our Gloucester and our Cordelia are the same actor, and they're actually kind of presenting each side to the audience. And I'm the only one who is split, but technically one person.
Got it.
Yeah, because our idea was, and I don't actually know if this was the concept coming in, but as we started table work, and as we were talking a little bit more about it, I having just done Fool, as you said, and just knowing that novel as well as I did, there was so much pocket in my head, and as we've talked about it, and our dramaturg actually came and saw our production of Fool, so she knew that was up in there. We kind of talked about, well, what if the idea is in this world, Lear actually had a fool that existed as his own person? Like, what if that was, for all intents and purposes, what if that was Pocket? And he got a little too close, or maybe got a little too all licensed in his foolery, and ended up perhaps getting himself killed by either Lear in the unfortunate case of Adrian Scarborough's production, or killed by Goneril or Regan, which is kind of what I like to imagine a little bit better. And Lear is sort of a dementia-addled defense mechanism, perhaps split himself into two people. So Fool kind of becomes a defense mechanism. When he starts to get a little too emotional or a little too angry, I physically turn into the Fool, and I'm like, calm down, dude.
That's kind of amazing, and seems very smart, actually. I mean, it seems like a ridiculous way to think about the two roles, but as you figured it out, that actually seems to make a lot of sense to me.
Absolutely.
So talk to me now about, having worked on my adaptation of Fool, how, first of all, thank you, by the way.
Of course, yeah, of course. Thank you.
Because it was a terrific production, and I've told you this before, but it's worth repeating that I had there were at least half of your cast I had zero notes for, and the rest of the cast that I had notes for were really notes for you, the director.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not the cast's fault. It's never the actor's fault, I believe firmly. But
particularly as I'm working only as an actor right now, it's never our fault.
Correct. Yes, correct. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What made you decide to take a chance on my script? And how has the working on that script informed working on this production of Lear now?
Yeah. Well, in terms of what made us take a chance on your adaptation of Fool, to me, it was really kind of a no-brainer. I was fortunate enough to have you just share it with me in I think like November of, I think 2024, if I remember correctly.
That's right. We had performed the complete history of America there in Greeley, and we were chatting afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was in Greeley because a production of the Tracy Letts's The Minutes I had directed opened, and I snuck away on their second performance to come and see the history of America. And yeah, we chatted about it there. But yeah, I read it, and Fool, it's the novel Fool, Chris's novel Fool, has been just one of my favorite novels since it came out, and was kind of my way into enjoying Lear, because up to then I really only knew Lear as a fictional character on the field in a football game.
Deep cut.
Yeah, right. But that the novel just continues to delight me to no end, and all three of them do, all the Pocket stories. So then getting and for years I had thought, why isn't this a play? Like, as you and I talked about, and I actually got to see Chris speak on the book tour for his most recent novel, and he mentioned that too. And people in the audience, there were a lot of the Colorado just theater community went out to see that show, and lots of the questions were like, "How come there's not a play version of Fool?" And I'm in the back seat. I'm in the back of the room. with the actor who went on to play our Pocket, and we're both just kind of giving each other side eyes, like it's probably not our place to say. Like there is, but I mean, we didn't. But yeah, to me, it was really kind of a no brainer. Just having loved the novel, and then just having been a longtime fan of you and the Reduced Shakespeare Company. I was like, this is absolutely a great adaptation, and then mentioned it to the folks in Greeley who run the Greeley Garage Sale Theater, and said this is really great, and then the idea to do it was proposed. So I mean, it was really it wasn't a very long incubation process. It was, I have this really great thing, cool, let's do it.
Great. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and you say that the novel informed your way into King Lear. I think one of the great parts about the novel is that it provides incredibly plausible backstory for the daughters, their mothers, what Lear did to become king. It doesn't make Lear the character any more. Well, it makes him a little more sympathetic. It doesn't take away the actions he then takes, but that's one of those. Lear is one of Shakespeare's plays that I don't like as much as other people do, and I much prefer Christopher Moore's take on the novel than Shakespeare's. Yeah.
No, same. And I know you and Chris said this in Sheboygan when I was fortunate enough to see the first production of it. But like, I would rather just see this than King Lear. Though I will say the production that we are doing is a very nice, lovely, concise 90 minutes. So
that's great.
Can't technically get away from Reduced Shakespeare, but
well, and now,
should be.
But is now that you're actually playing King Lear, are you finding more sympathy for the character?
I am, yeah. No, I really am, particularly because
you kind of have to.
Yeah, that's true. I knew the Fool would be not easy, but I knew in terms of the doing of it, but I knew he would be easier to access because kind of the wise ass in the corner of the room is how I've lived my entire life. So I was like, okay, well, we can figure that out. But going into it, I was pretty nervous about just playing Lear in general, just because of the weight of the fact that it's King Lear, and having just to mention our Fool cast here in Greeley, having just seen Seth do it, who I thought did such a brilliant performance, creating both a dramatic, serious Lear, but also I think finding a lot of the comedy that's both in you and Chris's writing, but also I actually think in Shakespeare's play, because that's been my biggest realization, that it's actually a pretty funny play.
Yes, as are many of Shakespeare's tragedies, and you're 100% right. Seth absolutely nailed both the power of Lear and the strength and the seriousness of it, but also knew where the jokes were and knew how to play moments with the right timing. And that's not easy. If it were easy, everybody would be doing it.
Right. Yeah. And we've had a relatively short rehearsal process. We started in the middle of March, and we're going to open for previews here on the 24th of April, which is, next week, when we're recording this, at least. So it has been very fast, and then we get some more rehearsal time before we properly open at the end of May. So I'm excited to get what we have started building in front of some audience members, get some feedback, and then get to have about, I think, 3 or so weeks to continue to shape and just develop this process. But I have gained a lot of sympathy for Lear. I think he is a funny character. I think obviously he's a tragic character because it's the tragedy of King Lear. But I think it's easy to. I got to meet with an actor who understudied Lear in the most recent Colorado Shakespeare Festival production that was done a few years ago, and they had said both they played Kent in the production, and then they understudied Lear, and they said both themselves and the woman who played Lear, they're like, yeah, not a sympathetic character, probably was never a good father, probably was never a good king, and there was some really great insight around that conversation, but I found myself thinking, man, I don't know that I agree with the fact that he's just a bad father, bad king. I don't feel like that's in the text, nor do I feel like Kent, Cordelia, and the Fool seem like the decent people in the show. Why would they love him? So that's been my discovery, that he's not just kind of a bastard, as I feel like he so often gets done. But how do we make him funny? How do we make him sympathetic? It's a little harder because he's also the Fool, and that's informed kind of some of the sympathetic sides of the Fool, where and just Clove, our director, and then Aiden, our movement coach, they've been could not be doing this without them, figuring out that difference. But then some of that kindness or softer moments of Lear, where it's like lean into the Fool a little bit more, but don't fully be the Fool. Have Lear have that inform Lear's. Certainly, Fool can inform Lear's love of Cordelia, particularly at the end. When he disappears.
That's really fascinating. And now to ask the question in the reverse, is working on this production of Lear giving you any insights into my script that I should consider for the next production of Fool?
No, honestly, and I'm not.
You're right,
I'm not
because
just,
my script is perfect. I hear you. No, I get
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's perfect as is. No, I mean, and actually, I think the thing I keep marveling at as I've gone through our production is the one-to-one of the real Lear moments versus how those scenes, particularly in the first act of Fool, because I feel like that's set the closest sideways to the actual Shakespeare Lear, and then Act Two is kind of slightly its own more brilliant, delightful story. Like each of the scenes where Lear is with his daughters, I mean, the way you crafted that is so, you're like, oh yeah, this is the Goneril, like taking away the knights, and he's mad about it, and it's just more concise and funnier and faster. So the one-to-ones are brilliant, but the biggest thing has just been the challenge to not accidentally say pocket lines from.
I bet.
Take away from living with both of these for the last year or so, like I have. One of them slipped out in we did a designer run, and all the designers for the show were there, and Michaela, who is the artistic director of the company, was there. So it's like, okay, let's everybody do a good job. And at the tail end of the reason not the need speech, I said, "Oh fool, I shall go mad," and literally just as if I had planned it, out of my mouth came the line, "I Nuncle smashing start you're off to." It's just like, oh, like that's which feels appropriate. The spirit of Fool / Pocket has not left.
Perfect. Well, and you mentioned my friend Adrian Scarborough's performance of the Fool opposite Simon Russell Beale at the National Theatre in London, and I was lucky enough to get to go to the opening night of that. And for his opening night present, I gave Adrian a copy of the script of Fool. And when he was reading it during the run backstage, he went, "Oh, I so wish I had had this during rehearsals."
Yeah, no, I've gotten to see clips of that. I wish I could have seen the theatrical presentation, the movie theater presentation that they did of that. He actually, I mean, I obviously don't know him, but the interview, I went and found the interview you did with him, however many years ago, when he was doing that, before we went into rehearsals. I would argue there are too many interviews with the same like 5 dudes who have played Lear saying the same like kind of 5 things about people's observations of Lear, which are great. Those people are the 5 guys who do it for a reason. But there's not a great amount of interviews or conversations with people who have played the Fool, and the 2 best that I have found are the one you guys did on this podcast, and then to do a real deep cut, the when you and Gary did the drawing on Shakespeare during the pandemic, that conversation with Adrian as well had just some. He's got such great insight into that character. So between Fool and just my own thoughts, and then listening to him, that's how we've kind of mushed it all. So it's all those things.
That's amazing. Well, good luck on the. I hope this performance doesn't drive you mad.
Maybe temporarily, but then we just shake it off and move on to the next not King Lear thing. But we briefly joked. I missed rehearsal last night, and our movement director and our Lear Fool Swing stepped into the role, and we were just chatting about, boy, yeah, it's like you run through it at home and you have these lines and you're like, yeah, I'm every inch the king, and then you get in the room and it's hard. And I said, right, yeah, I'm a great kitchen Lear. And his joke was that can be the third Lear infused project that you work on after this. And I was like, no, I've already got something lined up, and it's not Lear. I need to get away from this old man for a little while.
This podcast is a production of the Reduced Shakespeare Company, reducing expectations since 1981. Go to reducedshakespeare.com for performance dates, actor bios, email newsletters, and so much less.